Greetings. This is Body-Culinary. Giving you a quick shout. So it's 4:58. So I want to get moving, so I can get some good quality movement practice in today for myself, self-care for myself. First, so I just wanted to touch base really quick with the super quick Loc Quickie, and keep in mind, I'm extremely tender-headed. I don't like being a slave to my hair, even though sometimes I like to play in my hair. I don't want to be a slave to my hair because all of that time I could have been moving and sweating and having fun, right? So today, my loose fine locks, so you can see all this is not twisted. All I did was I still have those two fat cornrows, and I just tucked them in the back. So when you're exercising, hey, greetings. So quite often when I'm styling my hair or when I'm exercising and I'm sweating, I don't like a lot of hair at all on my neck. It feels like an irritation, like I have carpet on my neck. And so when I don't have a whole bunch of earrings and dangling stuff, then I can really feel free to move, right? Really free and clearly. So no products. From time to time, I'll pull some aloe out of the garden, and I use aloe for so many different purposes, right? So my way of the grandmothers, I like to take one thing and use it for many different purposes. And if I have aloe or sometimes some organic castor oil, I'll put like a teeny little bit right here with some water. That's it. My skin can breathe. I just don't feel the need for all of that stuff. I love beauty and adornment and enhancement, but it's a beautiful thing to feel free. Like you don't need all of this stuff. So yeah, I'm just really appreciating the skin that I'm in, just like my grandma's, right? So that's super quick, right? So the other thing is talking yourself out of working out. So this mind, right? And the mind is not the brain, right? The brain is the organ, and the mind is the mental activity, right? It's the function of the brain. It's what the brain does. And so, we have so much stored up in this computer. It's usually chat all the time. And quite often, especially for women, quite often in the early day, the mind, you'll be thinking you'll have all these, this inspiration and high expectations, and your mind will start talking you out of moving. You could say working out. I like to say your personal movement practice, right? Creating a personal movement practice that is yours, where you get to dance, play. Primarily, I like to think of it as play, but also challenge yourself, get sweaty. Your mind, the habitual patterns of your mind, you'll talk yourself out of working out. So in the time that you could have either gotten like a full workout session, even if you don't have like a huge area, right? So I'm not dependent on the gym, but I can work out in the gym. I can work out anywhere in a really small space. And that's really important, especially, if you're a mother. But the time that you spend ruminating, which is obsessing without doing anything about, you could have gotten it. You could have gotten it over with. And I have never, ever, ever regretted a movement session, an African dance session, training with weights, capoeira. I just have never regretted it because it is an immediate mood shifter. On a chemical level, you're getting an internal shot of drugs from your own body temple. So I'm one of those simple people. I can get high off of music. I can manipulate and tap into a mood with music or the drugs in my own body, right? You can get your own melatonin, serotonin, dopamine, especially from movement. So many people, like on one of the dance classes I was teaching 2 weeks ago, I was having like a blast, and it wasn't a lot of people that came in. But there was one woman in particular. She came and she sat down. She looked so drained of energy. And I was such having like a party with myself, which I have always done, right? Because I don't need to go to a club. I don't need to drink any alcohol. For me, it's just not necessary. And also to damage my liver and my skin. But, I was like, come on, come have a good time. And I totally can relate. The woman just sat in her chair. And I've noticed it a lot sometimes. Folks can feel maybe intimidated, like, if people were to check in with the dialogue in the mind, right? The mental activity, the habitual thought patterns. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Sometimes it's really interesting to check out the dialogue, if you can observe, right, objectively, what is going on with your mental patterns. It's usually going off. And quite often, this mental activity can be sabotaging ourselves, right? So again, the mental activity is a function of the brain, right? So it can either, I have like a little litmus test, because people, a lot of times we say that the spirit was moved me or the spirit told me to do this. So I have my own personal little litmus test, and my essence, or my spirit, whatever you want to call it, intuitive energy, would never harm me and would never harm another. But I will say the ego, that sense of self, that, and it does have a purpose, right? It protects us, right? It's also a sense of self, but that same ego can take out the host. For example, the ego, this sense of self, that it can get out of control, right? And it can take something that's very positive and twist it, right? Working in the fitness industry for many years, and in some of the higher end gyms, I've encountered different types of bulimic people, and not all of them were skinny, skinny. Some were, I was surprised, were kind of big, but they were bulimic nonetheless. I've watched women chew, 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 chew lots of gum and stay on the treadmill for hours. I trained several clients, and this person would still be there, and they were exercising to the point where they emaciated their body. So usually it's the mind trying to control, or a response to trauma. This mind is a mamma jamma. So there's really something for us to gain an intuitive, as well as, there's more things out there for us to research, get a basic understanding of human psychology and how our own mind works, because it can sabotage us, right, out of our best intentions. And you turn around, 5, 10 years is gone, you got 50, 60 extra pounds. And of course, it's not all about what you look like, but on a basic level, it's about health. So to carry unhealthy adipose tissue, right? I'm not talking about muscle weight, because there's a big difference, but to carry unhealthy weight and additional weight around the midsection is actually a precursor for diabetes and high blood pressure. And that's something for all of us to be concerned of, but especially, I can say, in the chocolate community, we have those comorbidities, or those diseases that like to hang around in a gang and run in packs, right? So that mind, I want to just invite you today, because, I don't like to tell grown folks what to do, to invite you to just tap into, observe your mental activity. And is your ego, that, and just give it a little litmus test. Is it talking you out of something that's healthy for you? The ego can also have you ignore red flags of behaviors from others. The same ego would have you smoke cigarettes, right? Or do things that we know is extremely toxic and even deadly to the body. I would often think, like, what would make somebody take drugs, because I've seen lots of substance abuse around me when I was growing up, alcohol and substance abuse, and rather come from a place of condemnation. I have a curiosity. I've always had a curiosity about, why do people do the things that they do. From a very, very young age, I just felt like I could see. I think, like, these adults think I don't know what's going on, but I could see, So, and just getting a basic understanding of human psychology. Why do we do the things that we do? And quite often, it's because we've all experienced some kind of trauma. Some of it we forget about, and the event has passed, but we store the emotions, into the body. Right? When we're little children, we're not over obsessed with food. We want to go outside and play. The last thing we're thinking about is eating. But at some point when we experience trauma, and if this is what's been modeled to us by the adults, we'll start to medicate. We'll find things to medicate. And quite often, even without thinking about it, the adults around us will share their habits with us. So although certain things may have happened to us, and we may have been traumatized at a young age, whether that's culturally, as a group of people, individually, it's our responsibility our life is our responsibility. So it's ultimately up to us to find ways to self-correct, to adjust, to put into perspective, so that we're not constantly looping the trauma. And that ego, that sense of self, is constantly acting, behaving, and defending itself, and defending the body temple as if things are still happening to it. So we can be looping trauma over and over and over, ruminating, which is obsessing without doing anything about. We lose our workout time, we put on lots of weight, and doing this habitually over and over and over in years makes us become very heavy. And so that can manifest in physical weight. And some people that can manifest in a growth, such as a tumor or a cyst. There are many women, we have a tendency to implode. Sometimes we don't express how we feel because we're taught it's not ladylike or it's not feminine, but we can be imploding on the inside. And so we'll self-medicate. That can be medicating with food, with drugs. We can be abusing different types of drugs. I often think it's interesting with all the talk about cannabis, where folks are, fighting and marching for cannabis, but a lot of us are still eating highly processed foods and using the foods primarily like a pacifier to soothe ourselves. So without making it wrong, I invite folks to have a healthy curiosity about why we do the things that we do. And then we can apply a good dose of, I would say this very simply, at least I could share my little, not my little, but share my simple perspective is that spirituality is very practical, because although we can talk about all the scriptures and all the stuff in different lives, even if there's another one, it will be a continuation, right? So we don't get off the hook. Why we think we're going to get a fresh, brand new body in the afterlife if we didn't take care of this one? That doesn't make any sense. So I think it's really important to be a critical thinker, which is also another good incentive to eat whole, fresh, living, unprocessed foods, right? So that this organ, the brain, can function, optimally. So just let's be mindful that we're not talking ourselves out of our exercise movements, because it's really precious quality time that you can spend with yourself. Right. So, and also it's a wonderful thing to use some kind of accountability tools. That's if you have someone positive in your life. I like to say your quality circle of influence. Who are the 5 people that you keep around you the most? Are they passionate about fitness and being healthy in this body temple? Are they passionate about um, what I would say to my son is like generating honorable economics, right, without exploiting others, causing harm to others? Um, are they committed to healthy communication skills, learning how to communicate? These are some things that many of us have not picked up when we were younger. So we can use the internet. The internet is not everything, because you can get scammed on the internet. But you can use the internet to get access to so much information, right? To help you put things in a perspective to understand, right? Because when you understand something, you're more likely to be effective at changing it if you so desire. So last thing I want to touch on, because I don't get my movement practice, my exercise on, is feeling attractive and important. Let me know what you think in the comments. Feel free to share. I would dare say it's very, very important. And this is another area why I invite folks to just be curious about and start to gently notice the dialogue that's going on in your head. Quite often, it's if you can listen, right? It's like voices, it's conscious programs, letters, sounds, music, all that stuff is stored up in this computer. It's saying like, oh, I don't like this. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, they had a little dark mark. That's right there. But, is it really important in the grand scheme of things? Do you feel comfortable, in your skin? What is the constant criticism that's going on? And if it's criticizing here, then usually we'll criticize, others. I was very fortunate to notice my 2 great grandmothers, and who I talk about all the time, and my grandma. They were all 3 of them were in their 90s, and I had one grandma that passed in her 60s. And they're such great living examples when you close the books, because what did people do before there were no books? They had to use their common sense and trial and error. But all 3 of these women were in their 90s, and they had beautiful skin. They were very simple. One big thing is they ate their own food. So, I'm an advocate. I will always talk about eat your own food. My grandmother used to say, if I want garbage, I make me your own garbage, right? But she didn't eat garbage. And she was the most loving, present, and pleasant woman I have ever met, right? And so I used to wonder, why is she not like other people? She didn't have the internet. She didn't have Eckhart Tolle, Oprah, a life coach. She didn't have all of this stuff. She wasn't a complainer. I used to wonder, she was in such stark contrast to everyone else. So I had a curiosity about how come she's not as angry as other people. She always, when somebody came in her house, had something to feed them, and whether it was a glass of mabi or sorrel or coconut bread. I talk about my grandma, all the time, because she wasn't a person of a lot of words. She was a woman of action, and she was always busy beautifying things. She always had sending bread and jerk seasoning and stuff for other people. So she is my model. And also my grandmothers, them all having their common sense, being very sharp. I just noticed the patterns of their behavior. And in particular, I've always had an eye for women. Even when I was young age, I always looked to see, like when I looked at my mom in a picture with a poodle skirt, young and fine. And when I started to notice in the church, there was so much obesity. I did not know the word obesity back then, but I saw patterns. And I wondered as a child, how did they go from this to that? So I just started paying attention to the patterns, whether it was folks getting drunk off of alcohol, how their behavior would change, and how I saw one of the family members abuse his wife. When I noticed people's hands really big from shooting needles with heroin across the hall. And, when I would visit the Caribbean part of my family, my grandma Lou really stood out as a stabilizing force in her simplicity. She had so much order. So the order was calming, stabilizing. I noticed the different patterns. So sometimes we're seeking out for so much information, we may not notice those simple people in our lives who are a tremendous example. So we'll look to the Dalai Lama and all these people online and meditating for hours. My grandma didn't meditate for hours, but when she was moving around her house, she was always had a chuckle and singing and light, proactive. She moved like a little ant. And I always saw her with her own little cornrow hairstyles, either to the side of her plaits, her two little silver bangles, Beijing bangles. And I watched her. She was comfortable in her own skin. It wasn't even a thought. It just was not a thought. I don't remember seeing her wear wigs. So these were examples to me that go beyond all of the books that I see today. And I'm so grateful because they give me a litmus test so that I can have discernment, right? And discernment comes with life experience. So you can see and understand who you're talking to when you're communicating with people, and you can get the undertones and understand when people are changing the context of words, when they're being manipulative. How can you tell, especially in this day and time, who you're speaking to at any given moment? So, feeling back to feeling attractive, being attractive, I think is very, very important, because feeling very unattractive, especially with all the pressure from social media, I think definitely drives people crazy. I would dare say chocolate women, sometimes I feel like it's driving us crazy. Crazy. If you look at young women, if you look at the amount of money we earn and the complaints that we have within our community, the amount of money, billions, trillions of dollars that are leaching out, and we don't control the means of most of it, the production of what we're using to beautify ourselves, and that money is not being circulated back into our community, because quite often one of our biggest challenges is economics. And I've seen women and girls, if I've mentioned, around the world, sometimes having to offer or being offered at a young age up for money, for prostitution, and their lives being put in harm's way because of economics. So if this is so much economics to be had here, think about it. What are the possibilities? So that being said, feeling comfortable in your own skin is important. I remember when I had lots of acne, and I was somebody that's very healthy, lots of muscle, juicing stuff for years, decades. And at one point when I had all of these marks on my face, it took me years to figure out why my skin was still breaking out. I had to figure out the different patterns and not have the ego just about being vegetarian or vegan. I did a lot of self-experimentation. And now I don't put anything on my face. Nothing. There's no lotions, no creams. There's nothing on my face. And so now I can relax, and I feel comfortable in my own skin. I don't feel like I need makeup. And I get all this level up, the talk of leveling up. I think is very important. And I'm not knocking it. I do think it's very important for us to feel great about ourselves. So it's up to each individual to decide what they want to do to beautify and adorn. I like scents and flowers and waist beads and stuff. I love stuff like that playing in my hair. Then I'll be creative, whether it's castor oil or um, if it's let's say local cocoa butter that I get from the Mayans, or aloe. These are things I did with my eyelash and my eyebrows when I was a little girl. These are things that are very natural, but I feel comfortable in my own skin. I like what I see when I look in the mirror. And so this constant seeking of validation from outside, sometimes it can drive us crazy. It's like, somebody please accept me, somebody please love me. And the interesting thing is, it's superficial, because just because somebody gives you compliments or strokes your ego, that doesn't mean they necessarily really have a care and a protection for you. And they can't if you don't protect and love yourself first. So yes, I would say it's very important to feel attractive and to find styles that complement. For example, I have very fine Afro textured hair. I find things that complement me. My height, I'm not going to wear shoes that are killing my toes, and I can't be functional and get on my bicycle and put groceries and produce, well, not really groceries, but produce and fruits and vegetables on my handlebars. Those are litmus tests for me. If I'm doing a lot of activity and I'm sweating in the garden on my bicycle, I don't want makeup rolling down on my neck or onto my clothes. When I used to work in the airlines, I remember, I had to be made up. And I remember being in hot Greece. I was in Greece. And after we got off the airplane, I had got the job and I had shaved my hair back off because I love to wear my hair in the low peach fuzz. And I had put a little wig on because they had some, I used to cut designs in my hair. So that was a no-no. It wasn't conservative for the airline. But I remember it felt like it was 100 and something degrees and I had my uniform on. And I was just like, makeup was rolling onto my neck. Then if you wanted to give somebody a hug, makeup on it, I'm not knocking the people that wear makeup. My main concern is, one, the economics are not circling back into the community of the women that have this unique textured hair. Number two, quite often the ingredients are extremely toxic and they're carcinogenic. So they can contribute to, we don't even think about it, contributing to cancer, and just depositing all this stuff. This is the largest eliminative organ, is the skin, and putting all kinds of dangerous chemicals that are dangerous to a fetus on top of the brain, right? So, if we can put pain patches on now and cigarette patches and medications, if they can be absorbed through the skin, then what are the implications for using all of these different toxic products, which we don't even research? A lot of times we don't research. And a lot of us, especially in this day and age with all the Google, we have gone to the other extreme and we don't read. So it's very, very important, because reading can stimulate this muscle, right? It can stimulate thinking. It can also be very relaxing. So yes, I think it's really important. Hey, Shante, it seems hard to gain weight on a vegan diet. Wow. Oh, okay, Shante. So let me address that. You can gain weight on a vegan diet. I eat living foods. I don't eat anything cooked. You can gain weight. So I think or I've observed from my experience, and this is over 30 years, this particular stint going on 11 years as a living foodist. So just eating, nothing cooked. I don't have a stove. And I did another stint. I was vegan coming out of high school. I was vegetarian and then vegan. And then when I did fitness competitions, I went back to poultry and fish for a while. And intuitively, I just did not want to do it. I just did not want to eat meat. And so I transitioned off of it. So at this point, 11 years. So I will say this, it's food. There are macronutrients and micronutrients. So there are many different reasons why you may not be able to gain weight. I mean, look at it. We have different types of hair textures. We have different body types. And some of us we have different metabolisms. So, sometimes when we're just looking on YouTube and trying to follow exactly what somebody else is doing, it may not be an appropriate fit for our body type. My sister, my best sister friend, she's a little shorter than me. We eat the same food. She's much more muscular, but she can eat a lot more food than me. I can put on weight very, very easily. So there's so many different variables that can contribute to weight gain or weight loss. So it depends on what you're eating, how much you're eating, what kind of physical activity that you're doing. And then also, especially for women, many of us do not make the distinction between adipose tissue, that's the fatty tissue that we don't want, Muscle tissue in the average woman, you are not going, it's impossible unless you're taking steroids for you to get bulky. Very, very few women have the body type where, if they have more, what do you call it? The hormone, not estrogen, testosterone in their body, where they have a whole bunch of facial hair and male features, will they'll get jacked up. And in addition, as someone that has worked in that industry and has competed, I can tell you the volume of training and the weights, women do not train like that unless they're at a professional level, and even they are taking substances. So there's different types of weight that you can gain. I've seen women gain lean mass and on be on eating plant-based and unprocessed. So anything is possible. Quite often we don't understand perhaps the science of it. And many of us are not consistent. Most of us don't keep records of what we're doing, and we're not consistent. So I don't know what your personal experience is, but I've seen all different types of variables on different diets. All the quote unquote diets can work, but basically what you're playing around is with the numbers, the amounts, the amount of activity. So there's some general guidelines for health. But here's what common sense kicks in. If you see that your body is like really underweight, and you may need to have somebody on your team, on your circle of influence, who's going to be very objective, who can say like, who's not just doing, a hateration or a frenemy thing, but saying you've lost too much weight. So you may not be getting enough protein, and you can get sufficient protein from eating from the vegetable kingdom. But if you're just eating lettuce leaves and you're a big man, that's most likely not going to be enough in terms of the volume. So many of us may not understand there is a science, just like there's a science to exercise. For example, different types of athletes look different. The power lifter does not look like the bodybuilder, does not look like the physique competitor, right? The sprinter does not look like the marathoner. So there's something that's called sports specificity. So depending on what you train like and what you eat like, that's what you're going to look like. So for my lady folks out there, if and quite often when your man I've seen this a lot, it's not everybody, but when your man is taking you to the gym, you feel good, we're working out as a couple, quite often the man will have a woman doing the same exact exercises that he's doing, because that's what has worked for him. But we have two different body types, and it takes time for somebody to learn proper movements. Usually people, I watch men put their woman right on a squat rack, a heavy squat rack, or on the Smith machine, and they're a novice to coming into a gym, which the form most likely is off and is very dangerous, and it'll give the person's nervous system a chance to adapt, right? And usually many women coming in for weight loss, they don't need to initially be lifting all of that heavy weight. So we want to put things into a common sense context, and that's usually going to require a learning curve. There's a reason why everybody has different results, and it depends on what they're doing consistently. Do they have any kind of objective feedback over time? So usually the most successful people use a coach. That's presidents, folks in business, Olympic athletes. They use coaches because it shortens the learning curve. Although I've been, in dance and yoga and fitness for years, I usually will always get a coach just for me to focus on me, because I usually want to know what's going to help shift me into another level of results. So it's a formula. Many folks they may be in a certain position, but many folks mentally aren't willing to invest in themselves. So it's like, if I was going to a surgeon, I wouldn't want to go to a free tax accountant or a free surgeon, because I wouldn't trust that level of expertise. And I found usually my most affluent clients, usually when they come in to the gym, they usually say, who's the best trainer in here? Usually that person is going to have the most life experience as well as the most education, and they usually provided and gotten a certain level of results, right? So if we're guessing, right, if we're always guessing, then it can take you a longer time. That's valuable too, because you can see if you're objective and you're honest with yourself, what has worked and what doesn't work. Usually for me, late night eating does not work, in particular with lots of a whole bunch of heavy nuts. I've seen you can get a certain physique with flesh. I've seen people do it, but I've seen it on plant-based. I've seen actually one of the best physiques ever on Living Foods a living foods regimen or lifestyle. Yeah, more so a lifestyle. But this person is very, very active in the type of activity that they're doing. They're just not doing Jane Fonda aerobics. They're literally doing work, in the garden, which is a whole nother level of fitness for um, a whole nother video. So, oops, I'm dropping something, my little speaker. So I'm about to get out of here and go do some exercise. So if you have questions, leave them in the comments. And last thing I want to say about looking attractive, not that you have to go out and spend a whole lot of money, but again, for you to just have things on, colors that inspire you, and to how can I say, it's appreciation of your own body. I appreciate my skin. I appreciate my nose. I appreciate the size of my hands and my toes. And, I have stretch marks from having a baby, and I breastfed. I'm appreciating the whole experience. Only we could start to be present with ourselves and appreciate your body where it is now, even if it has extra or a whole lot, maybe perhaps, of adipose tissue and bloat and fatty weight from us eating when we're not present and eating due to stress. The way that we think about it can really motivate us in a very proactive way. So, think of if you were being paid to counsel somebody, would you be beating them down, with your words? And you will be honest, you will be firm when necessary. But think about the way you would be speaking to someone in order to get them to get a certain kind of result, holding space for them to get the result that they want. So how we're speaking to ourselves, and I mean that mental dialogue that never stops, is really beneficial to just observe it, right? Because sometimes, quite often, we're being more hard and speaking more mean to ourselves than other people, or just as mean as other people who you might say are being mean, or mistreat us. So do encourage yourself by wearing things. You don't have to have a lot, but if you have less things and things that you really enjoy, you enjoy the colors and the way it fits your body and your frame, and you find things that complement you, that's a way of enjoyment and appreciating yourself. And yeah, you don't have to be in the mirror all day, but look in the mirror and appreciate your lips and your skin. My lips feel better with nothing on it. Years ago, I used to spend a lot of money on organic lip glosses from the food co-op that I used to shop at. But I realized in your own personal experimentation that I can feel my lips breathing. And when I'm very hydrated, I just don't need certain things. Now, that being said, there are now vegan nail polishes, that don't have that embalming fluid in it. I've seen some women make things with charcoal that are natural. So you can play around with those things. I know if you're sweating, you don't want to have raccoon eyes under here. But there are ways to adorn and play around, with your beauty, but in ways that are not toxic, right, to you. And I like to say, I rather eat foods that don't, I always say, this is my little saying, I'd rather eat things that don't leave waste on my waist, if that makes sense. Because feeling very heavy, can contribute. It's like it's almost like down feelings or depression, and those old thoughts will manifest on your body if you're thinking about them all the time. So if you can motivate yourself with having colors and a little flower or something around you, can go a long way and help you to get out the door, or in your space, to create your personal movement practice. It's so wonderful for self-care. I have never regretted a movement session, an exercise session, in over 30 something years. Never, never. And there were times where I was super duper tired and exhausted, and I always have more energy after. If you're waiting for inspiration, sometimes the inspiration doesn't come, but you're usually going to be inspired. I can almost guarantee you after. And even if you feel toe up because you're so deconditioned, right? People say, oh, the exercise is too hard. Well, your body may be deconditioned. And I did actually make a video that's on this channel about decondition. So for those people that have let their body become deconditioned, right? I'm going to be objective here and not beat up on ourselves, where it's no longer used to your body temple. This machine is no longer used to doing a certain amount of work. So sometimes the lack of flexibility, it can feel like it's burning, around your muscles or your joints because it hasn't been used, right? I know from dealing with older clients that from not moving, you can get so stiff that you have no mobility inside of the joints, right? These things become immobile, so they become arthritic. If you're not properly hydrated, everything gets stiff. So it's really actually simple when you think about it, right? It makes perfect sense. So I invite you today to notice the dialogue that's going on in your head. Keep it simple and find colors and things that inspire you. I don't have a problem buying things that are thrifted. I don't spend a whole lot of money on clothes. I did that for many, many years. That could have been several pieces of land, but it's not a priority. And also, when you take good care of yourself, you don't need to keep buying bigger clothing sizes and more stuff. You can play and really enjoy this original outfit of your of the body temple and the skin that you walk in. And the more you look in and appreciate what you have, know that the body is intelligent, it's smart. It will fall to a natural, healthy weight when you just stop putting junk in it. And just because something is vegan and vegetarian with these labels, if you don't have a certain result, then I invite you to have um, some healthy curiosity about why you have the results that you have without making it good or bad. But if it's not effective or ideal or what you want, then have a curiosity. Then it'll be on your radar and you can find some other kinds of solutions. So I hope this video was valuable. Share it with somebody that you know may find some value. Have fun. Check out yesterday, we did the Orisha to Yemaya and Oshun workout yesterday. It was quick. So I invite you because I like to have fun. People learn more when they're playing and they're having fun. So that was a workout that me and my sister friend did yesterday. So it was real quick, but you can get sweaty real quick. And we were like playing and having fun. Then it's not even like you're exercising, right? So check that out on the channel. I'd love to hear feedback from you. And that's about it. Get some healthy water today to get your system hydrated because the skin and the hair loves it. And create a great day on purpose, regardless of what has happened in the past. We can make a decision to write a new, that's what I'm going to say, hashtag new narrative. Hashtag new narrative. Write a new narrative so that we don't have to be enslaved by things that have happened to us because we can't go back and change it, right? Can't go back and be 25, but I can be a fabulous, 40 or 40 something or 40 something year old and really enjoy yourself. Have fun. Responsibility is a part of life. Responsibility is spirituality. At least it is in my world. Create a great day on purpose, and I'll see you again in another video.